with the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible. We called him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seabird.
The only way, like the sunbathing goodbyes. Yeah, that's my intro to Combat Vet Vision. It's my new intro. I actually sing that. It's actually really cool. Brian Colburn from Sitch Radio manages and does my podcast and throws it out there like that all the time. We came together with that whole cool thing. But hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This is where I get to talk about a lot of things that come up for myself. And things that it looks like it might be only audio only, but it looks like I really get to talk about things that have affected my life, that have affected me being combat wounded, to all these different things. But it also affects the lives of other combat veterans that get to come on the show and talk about their issues and things of that nature, as well as our sponsors, supporters, and volunteers. And I want to say, hey, there's a lot of sponsors and volunteers that have helped the process of combat vets, to include myself all the time. I rarely use my resources to any kind of maximum capacity, but I've really used a lot of them on this last trip. Doing this Space A. We're going to talk about the Space A trip that I just took. Took me 5 days to get to the location where I'm at right now, here in front of you. As of yesterday, I was on deck. But it started in Poland, and get into some of the cool, interesting things of that. I think we'll have a PSA today too, just so you know, in between some of this. But starting off in Poland, I ended up taking a train, and the train leg was 4 legs. It was 4 different trains to get to Germany, where I got to Ramstein, Germany. During that legs, I didn't always know necessarily where to go, what to do, so I had to navigate a lot of different things. And I just want to say up front, this is kind of a lesson in logistics. So logistically, how are you going to get to place from A to B, and is it feasible? Is it doable? And the Space A privilege that we have as veterans that are retired, that we get to travel for free possibility. And you have to think of it more as an adventure than a downright way of going, because you might not get there, and flights may get canceled, as they did for me. But anyway, the train legs got to a position where I was actually going to take one last leg of a bus to the front gate of Ramstein, but that didn't work out. The bus wasn't there for whatever reason, or I wasn't in the right place for the bus. But I was with all these buses at the time. But I ended up calling a taxi, and the taxi was recommended because I had to make a reservation to stay at the Air Force Inn on Ramstein, which was a really nice hotel there. And, it's got basically like a full-on mall for the base. The exchange is in it, the food courts, everything's in there. The things like 12 stories high, or 9 or 10 stories high. But I was on floor 8 of that building, got to stay the night in there. But to get there required me to call a taxi, and luckily it was recommended when I had to make my reservation. Reservations couldn't be made directly over the internet, so I had to do it by a phone call, and calling and making that happen. I tried to really always remain patient in my mind, heart, and soul, because I knew there was a lot of things that were going on, and I don't like necessarily getting out and doing things in this kind of category, but I really wanted to kind of give it the experience and enjoy the adventure of it. So I ended up calling the taxi, and the taxi got there, and I just came from Poland, so all I had was Polish money on me, and he said, "Hey, we only take pounds of, because they're in Germany, and that's their currency." And I said, "Well, okay, cool. Where can I get pounds?" And he's like, "Well," I said, "Hey, if I get there at the hotel, do they have an exchange? Do they have an ATM that I can do that with?" So they do, and it gives you either dollars or pounds. So I went up there, and put the amount in there. Came back down, gave the guy 20 pounds to take me. It was probably about a 10-15 minute ride, and not any problems, but that's what it was. It was pounds. So just remember, you might need to have some currency of the local area that you're in, because the transition of money has caused problems so that they no longer take dollars anymore. And, it costs every time you transition money. So there's a lot of things to be learned about, you know, that kind of money market wise too. So, when you think about, well, I'll just buy some of this money and wait till it goes to a certain point. Yeah, but the fees and all these other things that you got to add up to it kind of make you think and reflect back on that. So yeah, I stayed the night, great hotel. But before that, I went to ensure, because I fill out a document a document that's required for the Space A travel. Wherever you're flying from, no matter where it's at, you have to fill out a specific document for that. And that document basically has your rank, your ID number for your military DoD ID number, and some other information about yourself. Really basic stuff, not too long, not too big. It's a great, easy form to fill out. But you want to make sure you get it sent to the right location. You want to make sure that location actually receives it, because it's submit. You hit submit, you don't know where it goes. You don't even know if it went. And apparently mine didn't, because when I walked over there to the Ramstein terminal, I checked in, and I just wanted to, ask a couple questions, make sure that I'm good to go logistically for the night, to ensure that there's a flight tomorrow and things are looking good. The flight was looking like it was good to go at 9:45 in the morning, but I wasn't in the system. So I was like, hey, can you put me in the system? But by doing that, you kind of end up in a order. So people that are in the system that did check probably by phone call, they're still ahead of you on the list as far as like retirees. And we're already category 6. Used to be 5, but we're now 6 for whatever reason. I can't remember. But when you go down these categories, we're category 6 as retirees and our spouses. So or our families. Uh, so I got all plugged into that system, and the airman was they were real informative, really polite, really good to go. And the terminal was super amazing, for sure. Just the layout, the USO upstairs was incredible. The USOs aren't open all the time, and I want to say almost with pretty certainty, there's not a single USO that's open 24/7, unless there's a situation that requires that kind of amount of support. But 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 for the most part, they're only open certain hours. On the weekends, they could be closed, and it depends on the location where you're at. But the one in Ramstein, it opens up kind of around 8 o'clock, I think 9 o'clock. I think it was 8 o'clock, but or 7 o'clock, maybe even. Oh no, it was kind of late, but it's open for you to kind of walk into, and you can hang out. But the full functionality of it doesn't open up until a certain time. So I came the next day, and you can check in 24 hours, just so you know. So that night I checked in. Not only did I get put into the system, that's one thing that has to happen, but you also have to show up and say, hey, I'm here. So you're checking in, and your name's getting on the list of who they're going to call when the calling starts going off. So you could be in the system for all you want. There's probably 300 people that are in the system, but they're not necessarily flying today. So that check-in process kind of puts you in a check-in, like, hey, I'm around for the next 24 hours. So when roll call hits, please call my name. So in the morning we were standing around, and it just didn't seem like there wasn't that many people in the terminal, but there's a lot of things that started happening, and people started shuffling in, and of course the priorities go to the active duty members that are on leave, and all these people that are ahead of you, active duty members in general, or some other things. So usually the flight always states some cool big number of seats available. But until that plane maybe lands, or until they figure out what they're going to put on it or what they're going to do, may not end up with that seats. So you might show up with 53 seats, but then at the end there's only 19 left because cargo is loaded up or something like that. And so that was a situation, but there wasn't that many people in the terminal waiting to go, and there's a lot of flights, so it ended up working out for us. Well, for one, the 9:45 one was canceled when we came in. I came in, I was like, hey, it's canceled. But there was one leaving at 1900, And that one even was shifty before the night when I checked in. It actually moved to 1 o'clock the following day, but then when I showed up in the morning, it moved back to the 1900 flight time. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'll just hang out here at the USO until tonight when this one flies out. But at 10 o'clock, they're going to come across with like this safety brief and some other things. Well, at 10 o'clock, they said, hey, this flight is reinstated. So we're going to start roll call here in the next few minutes. So maybe some people that got discouraged at around 9:30 when they said, hey, this thing's canceled, or 9 o'clock, and they left. They might have been on that 24-hour roll call, but now that they're not in the building, that just goes away. So I don't know if it's good to hang out after something's canceled, and just kind of wait to see what happens, or what the deal is with that. So anyway, most of us all got on the flight. I think everybody got on there, but it was all the seats were full, and there was cargo in the plane, and it flew out at like 1300 or so. So we had some time, and these are the lessons learned. So I had my backpack and all my gear, but what I didn't have was a jacket or something warm, because apparently, the C-17, when it flies, you could either end up in a situation where it's really cold on there or it's really hot, but you don't want to be caught with freezing because you didn't bring enough gear. So had to go over to the exchange, do some shopping. This is another thing that I learned, is that veterans that are retired and they have their ID card, if you don't have the SOFA agreement stamp on your card or certain paperwork, and I just did some studying on that today because I was kind of really curious on, what can I do to get a SOFA stamp? What can I do to make this happen? But they will not let you buy something in the exchange itself, the main exchange. And I think that's, I don't know, for a variety of different reasons, because maybe people were flying over and buying a whole bunch of stuff and flying back to the US with it and making it some sort of logistic, money saving deal, or who knows what was going on with that. But for whatever reason, you can't do that unless you're 100% disabled, Purple Heart, uh, you know, Medal of Honor winner. There's a couple other ones that are on that list, or 100%, like I said, disabled. But you got to have your paperwork with you to show that. But I didn't have it, and I didn't know that was a problem until I was going through, and with this guy that I met, Danny, and to find out this guy was a um, helicopter mechanic, and now he works on airplanes, does some other things. He's got some kind of an interesting story, but he also had a lot of knowledge that I gained from hanging out with him and going on the Space A trip. So we went in there. He had to buy everything for me. I ended up paying him back, and then we pushed the cart across, and got it all, got all of our gear. We loaded it up in a cart and pushed it around, so it made it easier, instead of leaving it somewhere. So anyway, the plane worked, and it worked out. It worked out pretty much perfect. Everything was good, and we went through these processes. I will say, there's also the last thing you do before you actually, leave and get into this other section of the terminal while you're waiting to get on a bus to go out to the plane, is they have the border patrol agent there that's checking to make sure everything's good to go on everything that you might have, and so you want to make sure you got your passport all squared away and everything like that. Um, to be over in the European Union area, the rules basically are you can stay 90 days out of 180, and then if you exceed those 90 days, then you're a immigration violator. So you don't want to be that kind of thing. But however, there is a rule in Poland that in Poland we have a very special relationship with Poland. Poland does not need to draw a visa to come to America, but in return, Americans can go into Poland for 90 days. They can leave the Schengen area for 1 day, come back into Poland, and that 90 days starts again. However, it doesn't allow you the privilege to go anywhere else in the Schengen area during that time. But that is a special privilege that Americans have that I thought was really kind of unique, and I actually put it to the test, and it's worked before. So that's a cool piece of information to know. Uh, just trivial, but anyway, so flying back, we made it to, and our destination to fly back to was Andrews Air Force Base, and we flew into Andrews Air Force Base, and um, there was no flights from Andrews. But Danny does a lot of flying back and forth, so he leaves his vehicle in the long-term parking at Dover for up to 90 days. So he comes back quite a lot and just moves his truck and comes back to Dover and then catches another flight back to Germany, because apparently there's a lot of flights doing that. So we took a Uber, and we were trying to take a bus or something else, Uber, for about 160 bucks total cost. So we split that and went over to Dover. And so we stayed at Dover. Well, he got his truck, and even that was kind of a crazy movement. But we weren't sure if we were going to get a ride, because it was kind of late in the afternoon on a Friday, and who wants to maybe leave the area of where they're at and travel 2 hours to Dover and make that happen. So we went to Dover, and the flight for me wasn't going to take off till Saturday to come to Travis. I was trying to get over to Travis to the West Coast so that I could just scoot on down to here to Lake Elsinore. And I was going to get to a bus and some stuff to Sacramento, and then I was going to fly. But I had all this plan kind of locked in, and I was thinking about it and just trying to put the whole thing together in my mind, and wasn't fully executing the action until I had certainty that I was going to be on a plane or whatnot. So we got to Dover, and he picked up his truck and headed out. But he's going to be here in California. He may meet up with me later on down here. But on top of that, he dropped me off. He ran me around. He's like, "Hey, here's where the inn is, and here's where the terminal is." So in Germany, the terminal and the inn are very close together. It's very awesome, logistically, just to walk across the street and go to it. However, in Dover, it's about a mile away. So and you got to cross over a freeway. So you got to go over an overpass on a freeway, and there's a gate on this side of the freeway, and there's a gate on this side of the freeway. So you got to leave a gate, and you got to come back into a gate and show your ID. And I had a suitcase, a backpack, all my gear, and it's really hard to get an Uber to get you that might have the Uber capability to have base privileges. So it's not really an option for you to do that. And there's not a shuttle, and there's some things that are left up to trying to make sure you hike it on your feet. So it's all my injuries and everything. I wanted to make sure I could do it. So I needed to make sure I stretched out right and made sure my ankle was good. And I just had to take a little bit more specific care. But I also wanted to walk it the day before. So I had to stay in a hotel for 2 nights. Stayed in that hotel the first night, and then I got up the next day and I walked over to the USO, and I hung out for a good portion of the day, just getting to know the area, getting to enjoy the USO. And then at about 1300 or so on Friday, we got kicked out of the USO. And it wasn't like we did anything wrong or anything. But when the president of the United States flies in and goes through the process, hey, you know what? You got to go. So so they had everything secure so they can shuffle the president around, and apparently he's got some property in the area. So I didn't see him or anything. I just I was already heading over to get some chow from the exchange, which was a little bit off the beaten path to get back to the hotel. But I started to walk, and one of the guys that I ended up talking to in there was a security guy for the actual DNA processing plant, or DNA processing center for all the military. So when you go in and you do your DNA, it goes into a certain center. It was like remember you had to take a swab and do your cheeks, and then put it in this folding piece of paper or something like that, and put it in an envelope and seal it, and then it goes to this place. So it's kept on file for a long period of time. And he's explaining to me these cool things about it. And so here it is. I don't know. I joined 1991 when I graduated and went into the military. So my DNA is in that building. And if you really, here's something, if you don't know, you can actually submit a request to have that DNA removed if you so desire. I didn't know that was even an issue, but apparently that's one of those things that you can actually do. So it's kind of, I don't know why you'd want to do that necessarily, unless you're like trying to maybe, I don't know, maybe you just don't want your DNA out there. That's fine. You don't want the government to have anything that's fine too. That's a personal thing, or you're just a criminal, right? And you definitely don't want your DNA in the system. But it was just a cool conversation, really cool to meet this guy. And not only that, he took me by the building that takes on uh, all uh, deceit and affair kind of building with all the effects from any member that's been killed in the military. Their personal effects is kept in this other building, and it's a very secure building as well. But the family can collect those effects from this building. So not seeing any of this and getting this kind of history lesson. This guy picked me up as I'm walking. He's like, "Oh man, it's too hot to walk. It's 97. It wasn't that bad, but he ended up picking me up and give me a ride over to the inn where I was staying, but gave me this history lesson along the way and drove me past a couple of these buildings. It was just really an interesting kind of thing. So in this journey, I still gained a lot of really cool things. But then here it is Saturday, and I'm supposed to get on this flight. So I go over to there, making sure I have making sure you got food too. That's one of the things you kind of want to make sure you have food because you never know on a flight. Sometimes they have food, sometimes they don't. Um, but you want to make sure you got enough food for yourself and water because maybe they don't have enough water or something. But the plane did have water coming back, but it didn't have food. So luckily, we went to the exchange. I got my jacket and food. But here on this flight, they actually had food. You can pay $6, and apparently they give you some food on the plane. Uh, they took our bags. We got all set up. Everybody made it on this flight, so it was really really cool. And they started processing everything, and about 10 minutes after that, and I'm already booking. I'm booking a flight from, I'm booking my flight from Sacramento to California to San Diego, and and a return flight because I'm like, hey, I'll return. I'll go to um, I'll go back down to Travis and find a flight out of Travis at some point. But I also booked it so that I could change the flight up if I needed to. If I could change the the dates or times or whatever. Because who knows when necessarily there's going to be a flight, but you only have a 3 day window. So if you're looking on the computer system for any kind of future flights, you only have a 3 day window to look at. It's only showing flights, and those are subject to change at any minute. And that's exactly what happened to us. 10 minutes into it, boom, all the flights canceled. Uh, the gear on the plane apparently is doesn't allow for us to get on deck with it. So and we were going to fly out on a C5 Galaxy. So really cool. And thought we'd have the opportunity to fly out on a C5 Galaxy. And just to go back, I flew from Germany to there on a C-17, and the last time I saw a C-17 was basically in the lay down position as I was being medevaced out of country. And the whole configuration of the C-17 was a medevac setup and multiple different people on there with injuries from different things. And so to see the C-17 again gave me some time to reflect on how cool it was that the Air Force had all the capabilities, and we as a country have logistic capabilities that are outstanding. And the size of this plane, just to feel it, was just kind of like just awesome. I mean, it's just this big category plane of awesomeness. So it was really really cool. Um, and it's not like a regular plane. It's all raw and set up. And there's some pictures you can see that I'll be posting online, or you can see it in my Instagram, whatever you want to look at. But it was so really cool. It was a really cool opportunity to take that flight. But the C5 Galaxy was going to be another cool flight because never been on that. Never had a chance to, even in the military. C5, something that you just watch. You never really get to see it or get on it. But there's a lot of guys that travel that have been on C5s and C17s. It's just a normal thing for them, right? So I ended up meeting this guy, Tony. Todd. And Todd, I was like, damn, man, we missed this flight. But this guy just hit me up from the back. He's like, hey, man, I got my son coming back to me. Do you need a ride? I'm going to go to Philadelphia International Airport, which is about an hour and a half away. And I was like, yeah, sure. So you never know who you're going to meet. You never know logistically how it's going to work out. Or am I screwed for the next couple of days? Do I need to stay for another night in uh, these inns, Air Force inns. But you know, the going rate for these things are pretty decent. In Germany, it was like about $169 for one night, but you know, in Dover, it was like 72 or $73 a night. So it was these things kind of have different prices around, but it's kind of cool how that operates, and you just never know. You know, the instructions I got was, you know, during the holidays, during peak season for PCS, and you may not have the opportunity to get some of those the rooms that you might need or something like that. So you got to think about that. So anyway, at this point, I'm like, all right, let's go to the Philadelphia thing. I'm working on booking a flight from Philadelphia that night, hopefully, to San Diego. And the flight I'm looking at is 13 and a half hours. 13. it's going to fly to Denver. It's going to have a 6-hour layover in Denver for whatever reason, and then it's going to continue on to, you know, you get another little track to on Frontier. And Frontier is a little crazy, and this is where I get a little angry and frustrated, because Frontier has it so that your suitcase can only weigh 40 pounds. So all the time you're thinking, yeah, as long as my suitcase is 50 pounds, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. So now I have to worry. Now I'm going to have to strip my my bag down, probably, because I've made it so that it's under 50 pounds, but not under 40. So what a bullshit move on a company. And I'm just going to call that out right now, because that's just straight up bullshit. Everybody's under the 50-pound rule, and you decide to do it under the 40 just to screw somebody, because you know that they're all coming with the thought that 50 pounds is what they've got. And I think that's where, as a company, you're just total dick. You know what? You're free to do it, which is cool, right? You're so free to be an asshole, but you don't have to be, but you are. So anyway, that's just my rant. Hey, let's take a quick break. Let's do a PCA, and I'll come back to kind of how that thing all panned out, and how that all went. If we got that, Brian, if you're on.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Veteran service organizations, often known as VSOs, offer many services for veterans, service members, dependents, and survivors. Whether it's holding job fairs, finding solutions to challenges such as homelessness, healthcare, or financial issues, or educating veterans on federal, state, county, and local benefits, VSOs are a great resource for veterans. VSOs also offer veterans a place to socialize with other veterans for peer support. Plus, for help filing a claim or appeal, you may want to work with an accredited lawyer, a claims agent, or a VSO. VA trusts these professionals because they're certified in VA claim and appeal processes. To learn more, go to va.gov and search for VSOs.
All right. So anyway, I tried booking this flight, and I tried booking it through Travelocity, Hopper, and in general by itself through the internet. But for whatever reason, the servers were not working on any of those sites, and the internet was kind of janky. So for whatever, somehow or another, I ended up buying this ticket like 3 separate times, and I had to cancel already the flight to Sacramento. If you do anything in 24 hours, you have the ability to cancel it. So I have like a $2,000 credit, on my credit card, $2,000 worth of buying all these tickets. And I'm like, hey, Hopper, I'm trying to communicate with you. They weren't responding in a lengthy time, but they eventually did. They ended up saying, hey, we canceled this out because the ticket was already sold, and so I can't get it. But that wasn't that didn't say that on the sites. So I was really frustrated at that part. But and it was a pretty cheap ticket, but the amount of money that you can spend on a ticket, you could triple that with all the extra BS that they have. Do you want insurance on it? Do you want this? Do you want that? It was insane for the Frontier piece. And that one was really kind of crazy. And I kind of thought I liked Frontier, but I really don't, not after this. And Hopper got back to me after a while, but it was kind of, I don't know, it was really frustrating on that. And I couldn't I couldn't navigate. I couldn't hit the button wasn't working for Travelocity. So everything it was like error, and I've never seen it. Oops, we can't help you. I'm like, well, I've never seen that yet, and I've booked some flights and done something, but maybe because I was trying to do it so soon. Well, anyway, I got there, finally got a Southwest ticket, leaving at 5:15 in the morning, and it's already like 7 o'clock at night. But at 5:15, I was able to get one of like 4 tickets left for the Southwest flight that was basically going to go to Denver. I was going to leave at 5:15 in the morning, show up in San Diego at 10:44. And the way this other ticket was, it was also going to show up around 10:44 in the morning. And so I kind of put the word out that that's the way I'm going to make it happen because I thought I had gotten this ticket. But it was anyway, it was kind of a really crazy deal. And I will say, Hopper needs to be a little more convenient to get a hold of to get kind of some understanding, but it's not. They wanted to know what's your confirmation number? Well, I don't have a confirmation number because I don't have a ticket, but you guys took my money and there's no, so there's some weird things that you have to like kind of do in some of these cases. And so it's a game of logistics. So I stayed at the airport, which the smart idea was for me to ask some of the TSA agents that are hanging around, and maybe they're off duty or whatever. And I was like, hey, can you tell me where the best seating would be in this airport to hang out? Because my ticket doesn't go until in the morning at 5:15. And so I want to hang out somewhere, work on my computer, maybe watch something on Netflix or something like that. And they said, yeah, you know what? There's a cool place right over here. It looks like you can't go through these doors, but if you go through the next set of doors, you can, and then buckle back to the right. It's kind of right next to the restrooms, and it's these big concrete like countertop like seating that's like these benches, but it kind of looks like a modified artistic skate park. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. But now I know what it's like to feel like a lizard sleeping on a concrete bench. But the bench was like literally wide, like a full size bed, but it was like 3 full size beds long. And there was some interesting thing, and one interesting thing throughout the night. I didn't sleep that well, but there was 2 other guys that were crashing out waiting for their planes too. There was a crazy storm that delayed 21 flights, canceled 21 flights, delayed a whole bunch of others. So there's a lot of really weird, cool things. Some camera woman shows up to my site and she's like, hey, did you cancel? Did you miss your flight because of the weather? I said, no, my story is a lot different. And she was like, oh, okay, well, I got to go up here and try to find these people that lost their flights. So it was really cool. Channel 6 News or something like that up there in Philadelphia. So, but in the middle of the night, some guy shows up and he's standing there and he's mumbling and he's all frustrated because I think we took his bench or something like that. Maybe he sleeps there as a homeless vet or something like that. He's like, I'm a veteran. I did this, blah, 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 blah. But I didn't really understand what was going on with him. So and then he ended up walking away. He didn't ask any questions. He's like, you guys got computers, you got this, you got that. Cause the guy's over there, he's watching TV. The other guy's on his phone doing some stuff. And, the entertainment pieces, the cool technology that we have allows us to be a little more, entertained wherever we're going to be or work or whatever we can do that with what we've got and the free internet and all that. So I don't know, maybe we took all the benches and he's used to getting it every night or something, and they said that too. The homeless people try to come in and take some of this stuff, but that's where I kind of crashed out, and I was in and out of sleep and doing everything. But the next morning, made sure I got on this flight and flew to Denver and then flew into San Diego. And while I was in Denver, I called, or the night before, while I was the night before, I called Kevin Barger, and Kevin Barger is a really good buddy of mine. Him and I are combat buddies. We go way back, 22 years of knowing each other, and we served at 3-5 together. I mean, at 5th Marines, he was 2-4, I was 3-5, but we met during that time, and then he came over to the regiment and worked at the RAS with me for a time before I deployed with the 3rd Brigade Mid team and got blown up and everything, and then came back to Wounded Warrior Battalion West, and he's the corpsman at Wounded Warrior Battalion West. So him and I, and he works for me. And one of the last things he said, before He's like, I want to make sure I see you put that chief on before I get out, and before he moves on to his thing. But he came by and picked me up, and then he continued on with his career, by the way, and ended up retiring from Balboa down in San Diego. But he's living down in San Diego, kind of close. So I said, hey man, can you come pick me up and then take me? So we had that cool interaction. So ended up taking me to a truck where I can have it borrowed. And I want to just put a shout out to Icon and Paul Luska for making that happen. And thanks for supporting me on all these endeavors. So, to talk about sponsorships, supporters, volunteers, and just resources. So luckily I have a vehicle to borrow for the next, 19 days that I'm here or whatnot, and doing all these things. And then, and so I got this truck, but it's been 5 days. So they're like, hey man, where you been? What's been going on with you? And I said, hey, this is just an exercise in logistics and an adventure that I wanted to go on and experience and try. But then, it just becomes a little bit crazy. It could be more expensive than getting a regular ticket that you're just going to fly because of hotels or whatever you're going to do. In this case, it was definitely more expensive for me, but it was something that I've been wanting to do, and it's something that I'll continue to do because it's a fun way to travel. And the USOs are nice, and the facilities are nice, and you can lay down in the planes too. Some guys hang up hammocks, and some guys pull out their sleeping bag and crawl up under the seats, and they're all crashed out under there. And the seats are a lot different. It's on the side of the plane and versus the middle, and so you do have a little bit of space as long as you leave a walkway available. And it's something crazy. So I just want to say the experience of the Space A travel for us retirees is pretty good. However, there's a lot of things you're going to learn in the process that will keep your mind focused on, a little bit different tactics as far as like how airports and systems work. But you want to make sure that you have your visa, or I mean, not your visa, but your passport and your military ID, and make sure that's all good to go. And make sure you got some warm gear, because some of these planes might not have. And it's crazy, the C-17 is so big, so you might have a warm area here and a cold area here, and you may have a jacket on, but you got it unzipped, and then you show up in over on the East Coast, and you step outside, and the humidity is all crazy, and it's hot as heck, and you want to get out of this little jacket as soon as possible. But it was a great adventure, and I would recommend it. But be patient in your mind. And logistically, make sure you have a pack that's really good. Luckily, my bag had wheels, so I'm pushing it, across. I'm sweating by the time I get to the USO early in the morning before it gets too hot. There's just some, and taking the route the day before made it easy for me to take a different route with my bag to ensure that, I made it in the most efficient manner. But yeah, that's all I got for this day. But I want to put a shout out again to Kevin Barger for being there. A lot of my other buddies that were ready at any given time. Icon for their support and everything for Warrior Built and everything else on top of that. And Paul Luska for being my friend and just really helping me out, as well as pushing vets towards me to take care of as well. So there's some really cool things. And most of the time I talk about PTSD Foundation, Warrior Built, and Combat Vet Vision. Obviously, these are the three things that I really focus my world around. But PTSD Foundation of America being peer-to-peer mentorship for our combat vets, and I run warrior groups and different things like that. But on top of that, just some really cool things. So I appreciate it. If you have any questions, hit me up. I'd love to answer them. If you have any, show stories that you want, hit me up on that. But until next time, this is Aaron Siebert at Warrior Built Studios, signing off. Strength and honor. Out.